What's your mug say?
Oh, what do we got? Oh, we got Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. They all say something different.
I like it.
Not exactly the right time of year, but
No, it's fine, man. It's all about the vibes and sending
that's it.
a good festive message to everyone. Celebrate
True,
every day,
true.
right?
It's an early celebration. We'll call it that.
Hi, Boyd. Going live on the other services, and then we'll start picking things up. Let me double check what's happening over on LinkedIn because that's the most important one. Oh yeah, one more thing. One more thing. Perfect. All right. All right. Everyone that's tuning in, give me one moment. I just want to do one more little push, and then we'll get started with Charlie over here. Or Charles. Charles, what do you prefer when we're in this environment?
I mean, you can call me whatever. I don't know if anybody calls me Charles, unless it's a joke.
All right,
What do
Chuck.
you think?
All right,
Yeah,
Chuck. We're going with that today. All right. We'll get started while I'm trying to finagle a little bit technical stuff on this one end. Everyone that's joining on YouTube, on Twitch, on Facebook, and LinkedIn, use the text chat to ask questions or share what you're working on. I'll relay them to Chucky over here, and we'll get some insights, some feedback, some advice, maybe some follow-up questions that can help you rethink what you're doing and the mythology behind it all. With that said, Charlie, because that's what I love calling you, how about you introduce yourself, my friend?
yeah. Well, Charlie Carroll. Currently living in Diamond Bar, California. I wear many hats. I've lived many lives. I currently have I'm starting a new company, fabrication company called Design, spelled with double letters. I have a side project called Babes and Waves. It's just an apparel company. I do digital marketing kind of on the daily, and kind of just have my hand in many honey pots in general.
All right. So while we're getting started here and waiting for some questions, and Boyne, since you're over here, feel free always to raise your hand and jump on stage if you'd like to. Um, so we go back a very long time, Charlie, and you've always been an incredibly talented, artistic, creative person, and a real gumption to just get things done, which is always important for building a career or building a business. I'm curious, like early days, because you have such a robust mix of skill sets that you've developed, what really kind of got you going towards a career path with all of this? What was like the defining moment that kind of made you go, oh, I can turn all this amazing fun energy and ideas and imagination into a living? What kind of like started that whole journey?
I mean, I guess really what started me was being at home. My parents are both super obsessed with art, and so from a young age, I just going to LACMA, living down the street, just on the weekly, and so it's kind of been ingrained in me. My dad working for a musician, so my whole life's just been about music and art. My brother went music, I went art, and then took it more seriously as I was getting through high school. Then eventually did the school thing, Otis College of Art and Design. All kind of was always focused on this career path in one way or another, but I've tended to have a pretty loose approach to everything. And so I'm never like, I'll have an idea, I'll go towards it, but then of course you'll have opportunities arise and then I might make a shift because of it. So started a brand with my best friend who I'm still in a brand with. The brand's changed, but it's called Clean Aesthetic. And we just started out of his kitchen and then built it to where we built out a store. And then, well, we built the brand, built the store, then just started pushing, got into Bloomingdale's, then we started doing art prints for TJ Maxx. And then, just kind of kept going and going and going. And so, of course, there's like, that's the mainstream, but then that gave you a lot of offshoots, which allowed us, we got access to like being asked to build restaurants, and then we built our store and we designed it, and then we just kind of kept going from there. And it's like, as you get the opportunities, you just kind of, my my main goal is always, if you've got an opportunity to do something, even if it's small, and I've got the time, I'm going to do it. Even if I don't think anything's going to come of it, it should be fun. You should learn something from it, and every now and then you get something big because of it. So we got TJ Maxx. Did one little event that we were going to get paid for, and we had a little booth and didn't think anything of it. And my business partner Aaron, he was the one that ended up running it because I was busy that day, and we had a rep from TJ Maxx in Canada just walk past and go, "Is that your box of art prints? Like, do you guys make those? Are those yours?" I'm like, "Yeah." And so got a meeting with her. We started selling art prints to Canadian TJ Maxx's, did a few sample runs, and then they were stoked, ran them to all their stores. Then they got us in contact with the USA stores. And then within a couple of years, we were selling to like over 700 stores throughout 2 countries, which was pretty cool. And the only thing that killed it was COVID, as you can imagine, for a lot of different reasons. But, you know, sometimes you get good opportunities. Sometimes they stick and you can keep going. Other times they just kind of fall back and, just move forward and figure out something else. Life is good.
I love the end lesson of that. Life's good.
Yep.
Yes. I think it's wonderful too because a lot of people, they think that they have to do a lot more than they need to in order to create opportunities for themselves. But you know, the biggest thing here was you're just doing your thing, and it was a chance kind of occurrence where this person saw the work that you're creating and the quality of that, and they got excited and they want to talk to you. I'm curious, with this type of relationship and others that you've built, while building a career or building a business, like how much have these relationships come into play in regards to opening up doors to these new opportunities, or leading to other introductions to other companies, other people that can hire you? How have you fostered relationships and managed them in order to continuously create opportunities for you and your ventures?
Well, I guess it kind of always just comes back to trying to figure out a way to make something happen, even if you're not sure, always being open minded, never burning a bridge. Because so many times I'll have a small project that, you know, completed, everything's cool, good vibes between everybody, and then radio silence. And then maybe a year or two later, suddenly somebody comes back up and they want to do a bigger project. I mean, I guess in some ways it's kind of how I started working for Hollister. I did graphic design for Hollister for 3 years before I left. And it all came about because I had a friend get hired to do fashion design for them. I gave him some clean aesthetic stickers. He had them with him when he was at Hollister, and he stuck them on someone's folder. Well, that guy kept going up in the company until he ended up becoming the manager of the graphic design department for the guys section of Hollister. And they were like, we need a new designer, but we want someone that kind of like knows the ins and the outs, knows streetwear, and would be great if they were from LA. So we kind of get that vibe since Hollister's in Ohio. And so, hey, what about the guy that made this sticker? Like, let's check out his stuff. Saw the website, saw what we were doing, and then they reached out to me. And at that time, we were like heavy into the store. We were doing the art prints for TJ Maxx. I had no reason to leave because we were building our business and our brand, and it was going well, and we were starting to make some money. And so I respectfully blew them off, and I was like, "Thank you, but unless you're going to give me like at least 100K, I don't even want to talk about this. I don't want to start at the bottom. I know too much. Start me higher up or at the top." And then lo and behold, a year later, hey, don't know if you remember us, but we talked about a year ago. We have a better position available now. And then they reached out, and then it worked out, and I moved there for 3 years, and I gained all that experience, was still able to manage things back at home a little bit, but gave a lot of the responsibilities to the other business partners we had. And it was lucrative and it was good. It was fun, but I don't know about living in Ohio, so moved back to LA. But
Understandable. Yeah, I love this. Touching on that last bit with, it's kind of been a recurring theme so far in your stories that you're sharing with us, leaning on the other members of your team, right? A lot of founders, they often try to control too much, and they're very skeptical and hesitant to allow others that are on the team to take up the responsibility and do what they do best, and allow you to do what you do best and create space and more focus. So ideally everyone is a lot more specialized and doing the tasks that are more fitting to them and more enjoyable to them. I'm curious, when it comes to that dynamic with teammates, whether it's co-founders or employees, contractors that you're working with, or other outside, people coming from other organizations that, a lot of times in designer roles, especially, you have to work with other people, right? Whether it's a creative director or, some ad agency or something like this. I'm curious, like, first, how do you assess your weaknesses and be honest with that in order to you know recognize that it is better off allowing someone else to fulfill that role? But then also, when it comes to working with other people from other organizations, how do you manage those dynamics and that camaraderie and keep it always, like, fun and enjoyable to be working together?
Yeah. So I guess first and foremost is what you're passionate about, what you love to do, right? Starting there, it makes it easy because you're going to obsess over it, even if you might not be the best in your field. You're willing to learn, you're willing to put in the time and the effort to get better at it, right? That allows you to reevaluate your skills and your abilities, and you can compare them to others, especially those that are on your team. When you bring others in, like you're saying, you don't want to clash where there's two people doing the exact same things at all times because it's always just going to cause confusion. So again, with my business partner Aaron, we have a lot of overlapping skills, but we've configured over time how we can operate best together. And the same goes with anybody else we're bringing in. We know what we're good at. We know what we're not good at. We know what we don't want to do. So we'll kind of divide things up in that way. It ends up where I'll do a lot of branding and like design work, marketing, come up with ideas. We'll pin them off of each other and double check and like, kind of a checks and balances type thing. But then neither of us are going to try to do anything on like the back end of marketing. I can do the front end of it. Then we'll get somebody else to come in and put those ads out there, let's say, right? Or run the store or something, because there's only so many hats you can wear, and the closer correlated they are, the better off you're going to be. And that's the hardest thing. I used to try to do everything myself, and trying to save money, you end up just not having enough time to do things. Or the hardest thing that I found throughout my whole journey has been time management, because you want to do this much and you have this much time and you can only get this much done, and you think you could do more, you'll end up just running yourself into a hole. And once I learned that, it then became about kind of putting everything on the front end and doing as much as you can in the beginning, asking for the help for the things that either you don't want to do, or they're the less specific skilled labor. Oh, I need to make an art print. Well, I could build the frames, stretch the canvases, go into production and all of that, and I'll save money. But well, now I can't do any of the other stuff, because when you're doing any sort of design company, like 20% at best of the work that needs to be done will be the actual design, and the rest is the fulfillment, the website, the updates, the social media, so on, the back end, all this stuff. You can't do it all yourself, or you can if you have like one very basic product, and even that gets really complicated really quickly. So learning to do that, learning to shell out all of the side work to other people has saved a lot, and it allows you to grow a lot faster, and then you don't stress to death and your hair will fall out
Yeah.
as much.
I somehow still have mine despite all this
Yeah,
stress.
it's good.
It's magical. Yeah.
Love
Real quick. Yeah. Everyone that just has joined the conversation, I'm seeing a bunch of people that joined on LinkedIn. Welcome. please use the text chat to share any questions you have for Charlie, or you can simply share what you're working on, and I'll relay that to Charlie. We'll get some advice, get some feedback, some insights. Again, Charlie has a robust background in different design fields and in different roles. So, yeah, you've got a wonderful mentor here to, share with and hopefully get some support from. That said, Charlie, I want to touch on something you were just talking about in regards to really setting and managing expectations. And what we're explaining is how it could create a hole that you fall down into if you're not doing that appropriately. And that's been one of my biggest kind of challenges running this and other projects, in different stages of my life. But yes, there's this much I want to do. I expect myself to do this much, but in reality, there's like this much. But honestly, the other thing that's kind of a trap that people fall into, especially founders, is that you say there's this much that you want to do, but reality is there's a never ending amount of things to do because you're aware of everything. You've got all your ambitions in your head, all these magical, wonderful plans that you want to see realized, right? So there's always more work to be done. And this also leads into a lot of like kind of toxic culture within companies when you have founders who are a little bit hyper focused on this never ending list of things to do, and they try to put their co-founders or employees, contractors into a crunch at all times where they're, no, we have more to do, we have more to work to be done. I want you working on the weekends. I want you working after hours, things like this. So I'm curious, in your experience recognizing this issue, that there's always more work to do and there's a limited amount of actual output you can do that's healthy as well, right? How did you first kind of like understand that and manage that? How did you turn that awareness into wisdom that you're applying to how you live today?
Well, so you can cheat it when you have small, simple projects, right? If I've got one thing to do, if I have a product to build, design something, well, if it's small enough, I might be able to just barely get by when I should have given myself an extra week, but I got it like the minute that it was due and I got it delivered, right? Whew, lucky. I had to fail enough times to realize, and that's when we had our store, because once we had deadlines, and we had an apparel store that was also a gallery. We held over 30 local designers and artists work in there at all times. And well, we have an idea for this show, right? Whatever the show is. And we used to do these locals only shows where we would just do, it was Playa del Rey, and we'd have all these artists. We'd get usually about 20 artists to do artwork that was related to Playa del Rey in some way. And we would have all these products and this big event. We would get sponsors and we'd get beer and we get free stuff. We'd do advertising. It was a much bigger project than something that's singular that one person can do. You have to have a team in some way. You have to reach out at certain times. There's milestones involved. And if you miss them, you don't have that for the event, right? So our first couple events, they weren't the best, right? We were missing elements. It looked half-assed, right? But it's good to get to a point in the process where your tail's between your legs, because that's how you learn. You don't want to do it again, right? Especially when it's outwardly facing, when the public's coming in and they see this mess, it doesn't look good on you and it doesn't feel good. So that's when it's like, okay, pull back. Don't try to do 60 things. Try to do 15 things. Did we hit that? Okay, with the team that we've got, great. We want to do more. We either need more time or a bigger team. Do we have budget for a bigger team? Those are the questions we started asking ourselves and getting answers to. And the thing that's crazy, because I've worn different hats, because I've done, the store thing and the fine art thing, the illustration thing, the fabrication thing, when we started our new company Design, it's hard when you let a client keep trying to make changes because you're trying to appease them, and your time becomes less and less, and it goes from 2 months, and then just get us what you need, and then it becomes a month and a half, then it's a month, now it's 3 weeks. And we had an issue recently in the last few months where we were doing this big build out for an event in Venice, and they kept asking for more, and we were doing our best to make it happen, but the time was getting so limited that we ended up failing. And the amount of times I failed, luckily, is less than the times I've succeeded, but it does happen, and it's just an important part of growth. We delivered, but we only delivered 70% of the products we needed to for that event, and we had to take it off the bill. It ended up, we made minimal profit, but big learning curve, and that tends to happen when you're starting a new endeavor. Again, learned, there's got to be, and it's tricky because there's no real rule book. No one goes, oh, you're going to do a fabrication company, here's rules. You've got to discover them, learn them, research them, or just figure it out on your own. If you're a woodworker, which I have been for many years, you can make shelves. You make them out of walnut versus out of maple. Just the difference in material, same exact design. It changes the parameters and things will change. The walnut will burn faster. It will splinter. It's not as hard. It stains different. It finishes different. There's all these little details that you wouldn't think of, and it seems so easy. It's like, oh yeah, I'm just switching woods. But if you don't have a mastery of the material, you're going to end up having some issues. You've got to give yourself extra time just in case. You always need that little bit of a buffer. And it's taken me a long time, and there's still times where I don't quite hit the mark, but it's okay. And you just got to learn, and at least I have a better understanding now than I ever did before. So you try to set new boundaries, new ways to grow, and it just kind of just happens that way. That's okay.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and we'll touch back on that a bit after we're jumping into Jose sharing. Uh, Jose Mendoza says, building Tenali Farms, a greenhouse franchise model using proven CEA tech, not inventing new tools, but creating a scalable playbook to grow specialty crops and bring them to more communities. Sounds cool, Jose. Feel free to share more context around this, especially in regards to, I guess, the challenges of building your playbook and how you're approaching that. I'm sure there's some interesting things that Charlie can share on, especially when it comes from a branding perspective, and also in regards to experience design. Because a lot of Charlie's background is also in experience design, and that goes into what we want to talk about, or what I like to talk about with you, Charlie, in a moment. Is again the methodology that school often teaches, especially in these artistic fields, and how that also is played into into how you approach these things and the way that you document and learn from these experiments, which is essentially what you're describing, right? Figuring out the context of your situation, your resources, your limitations, the parameters of whatever materials or other factors are at play, and all of that. But before doing that, Charlie, do you have any experience, insights in regards to like potential playbooks or building out like a franchise model, or essentially like franchise models really live and die around two key things from my experience doing all this with people. Number one's the brand and how you position that brand in the marketplace, not only to the consumers that you're servicing, but potential franchisees who are going to buy into your franchise model, right? And the other side of that is the support and resources that you're able to provide to those that are buying into your franchise. So do you have any like potential insights, thoughts, questions that you like to pose, Jose, that might be helpful?
Yeah, I'm curious about the insight, a little bit more details of if you have any questions about it specifically. But we're currently actually building out a full brand, and we're going to be doing the design work for a new jujitsu gym, and which is going to be franchised. So the branding is always key, and it's always this balance where a client will come up to you and they've got their, it's their pet project, and so, oh well, let's say I love video games and I love like, fire and thunder and all these things. And they'll send over like these complex illustrations that are just insane, and they'll be like, yeah, I want a logo like this. And you have to chill it out, like, hey, logo design, any sort of graphic design, if it doesn't look good from, like, they always say, like, the bird's eye view 100 feet away, then it's not really going to stick. You want something that's simplified enough that can be broken down into one or just a few colors. You want it to translate onto everything from, social media, if you have a little thumbnail versus if you've got a t-shirt design, or you've got the front of your store has a huge sign on it, or a mural inside, or whatever it might be. If it's too complicated, it will pixelate, it won't translate correctly, it won't screen print correctly. And so I've always found that with any branding and any brand, having a good scope of the big picture and then funneling it down into step one and knowing what those parameters are, so that even when it gets down to the basics of your color palette, your fonts, your logo, and so on, that they will translate, because you don't want to spend all this time and money developing and then getting to the point where now you have to translate onto something. Oh, well, we need some merch to send to people because we have a gym and I really want to make towels. And you go, well, your logo has 7 colors and it's so detailed, you can't embroider it, and it's going to cost you so much money to screen print. We have to figure out another route. Oh, but it needs to have all those colors. It becomes an issue and you get stuck. And I've seen it happen multiple times. And so having that insight now, it does help a lot when you have a new client and you kind of have to refuse certain things because you know too much about the process to allow it to get to a point where, like, sure, you want to give the client what they're asking for, right? If you want to start a new brand and you love it, you want it to be this cool thing that's exactly what you imagined. But if you don't simplify it enough to make it digestible by the masses or to your audience and then some, it potentially, if not will, 100% cause you some issues.
Yeah, I think that's incredible insight. And yeah, having a photography background, working with different clients, it's a very similar thing. You know, yeah, you you need to leverage your own expertise to educate them, to help them achieve their vision in a way that's going to make sense. And it's something else that I've experienced as experience designer, UX designer, working with different founders that I'm brought in to help, because they're not like, they don't understand the process of building an application and bringing it to market. And oftentimes they're trying to get to that grand vision as quickly as possible without recognizing that if it's too innovative, it's too different from what people are already experiencing, what they're used to, you're going to create discomfort because it's new. Anything new, change, it creates discomfort in most people. And the more complicated something is, the more
Well, I
changes
lost
you're
you there
going.
for a minute, but
Oh, am I back?
can you
Hello.
can you hear me? Are we
I
there?
I can hear
Is it
you.
me?
I can hear you.
Are we there?
Am I gone still?
Uh-oh. Yep, no, no, you're there.
Okay,
I
I
think
don't
it's
know what's
I think
going on.
it might be me. It might be my internet.
All right, yeah. Twitch is telling us that we're both good on Twitch, so we're just having a fun little,
Oh, good.
yeah, experience together for everyone to watch. Okay, what I was trying to say real quickly is that, yeah, you want to be aware of what people are already familiar with, and you want to give them enough of that familiarity while leading them to something new, so they don't get scared and they don't feel discomforted too much where they're gonna be like, I can't like, this is too, like, I'm over it, right? And so the
Yep.
same kind of thing applies to the branding, the way that you're doing, like, design and creating all these different elements. It's always about doing the research and doing the experiments to test these concepts, these assumptions that you have with your core audience in any aspect of your business, right? And so I think it's beautiful, wonderful insight that you're sharing, and hopefully it's helpful. Jose did add some other stuff, but also Dr. Paxmore on Twitch added a fun little example of what you said. Favicon to T-shirt to billboard. The icon, the logos, they need to work in each of those different situations and be legible, be identifiable. So very good. But Jose's additional comments are: controlled environment agriculture is what CEA stands for. It's farming inside of greenhouses or indoor facilities where climate, light, and irrigation are managed for year-round production. Sounds awesome. If I could afford it, I'd love that. The challenge now is restoring investor and grower confidence about recent ag tech boom bust, where overhyped, expensive systems failed to deliver profitability. Success depends on proving that CEA can be efficient, adaptable, and financially sustainable. Totally understand that. Totally cool. Um, from a branding standpoint, Charlie, I also experience design as well. In in terms of storytelling, right? Because that's what this is really about. It's telling the story, in this case, to investors about the product, the company, the service, and achieving these very specific goals in their mind that are believable to them. Do you have any advice in terms of putting together a story structure or presenting a story that's going to resonate and build that trust and, I guess, belief in this being possible?
Yeah. So I guess so. Everything in my world always comes down to lifestyle. You're selling a lifestyle beyond anything else, right? Nobody cares about your brand, especially nowadays, if you're not selling the lifestyle that comes along with that. Usually, when you do, it will bring the right audience to it, and it can take some time. But people want to be able to see themselves in the space that your product lives and the world that you've created for that more than they care about even the specifics. The specifics come later. They tend to come when you're trying to advertise something, because then that, well, in the days of like a magazine, your ad will be in the magazine already focused on the people that want to purchase that. They're in the lifestyle. This is just one of the things within it. If you're starting from scratch, the tricky part is with social media or any sort of open and outward facing media. You need to find that target audience and get it to them as fast as you can. Give them, what, I think it was 10 seconds, something like 3 seconds you get now to shoot your shot before people scroll past it and don't care anymore. Similar to the same style of like favicon up to billboard, right? It's gotta work on the elevator pitch all the way up to your pitch deck, right? And I think that's most important. That's why, even going back down to the colors, the style, all of that, the more it can be focused on the same idea through and through, the better it's going to be, right? The easier it will translate, the more people will understand. Because if you have to go and explain something for a half an hour for somebody to really get it, it needs to be developed a little bit further. If it's something that someone can just look at and, oh, they get it, well, you're always going to have more success with that. And it's complicated, it's tricky, but the more you can develop that, the more you can spend time and focus it, you know the tighter the story, the better the lifestyle be pitched, and the right audience be attracted to it.
Yeah, I agree. I experienced a lot when looking at pitch decks or helping people with pitch decks. They tend to focus too much on all the small details, which are extremely exciting to them because that's like the heart of what they feel is the innovation that they're bringing to the marketplace and how they're going to compete with, others that are already there, right? And all those little details are super technical, and yeah, some people may really understand them and really appreciate them, but at the end of the day, what I try to like share with everyone is that you're producing an experience for people to have with your brand, your company, your team, your product or service. At the end of the day, everything results in an experience. And I say this often if people have tuned in before. We're having an experience right now, right? You're having an experience with me, with Charlie, with my brand, Startmata 805 Startups, right? And this is creating emotional responses in you. It's making you feel a certain way. It's making you think certain things. And that's helping define what my brand is, what Charlie's brand is, all of this, right? And the more you simplify things, especially at the high level, the introductory stage of all this, right? The easier it is for people to resonate. But more than that, when you utilize actual like photographs or little quick little like animated like gifs type of things in these types of examples on your landing page and your ads, um, the easier it is for people to immediately resonate with that and recognize, oh, that's like me. Oh, that's like my friend, right? And allowing them to see these things play out visually, it's going to go much further to be easier to understand what all these extra words are representing and mean, because it doesn't matter how detailed you are with the language, everyone's imagining something different based on their own experiences and biases and other things. But when you show them, here's how the product works, here's how our system works, here's how we're impacting people's lives as they're, experiencing this and enjoying this and benefiting from this, it's going to resonate much further. But what you said is so important, because the first interaction people have with you, it needs to be so simple and easy to understand and connect with, that it hooks them and makes it easy for them to follow along and then get all those details. Jose, if you got follow-up stuff, feel free to like add in more questions, go for it, we'd love to hear it. Dr. Paxmore asks on Twitch about process. What tools for organization, planning, collaboration does Charles' team use and rely on? Ah.
I mean, I guess pretty rudimentary. I do use Monday for any marketing jobs that I'll do, but which is it's good. It works. You can kind of build it however you want, but generally, I just feel that it works really well. I like the physical. I've always liked the physical. I guess being an elder millennial, I'm kind of a little like stuck in my ways. It's kind of a blend where I have the whiteboard at home with the major projects with the milestones. Then I'll tend to have I like the physical paper, but then I have the same thing on my notes app, and I'll have the shared notes app with everybody on the team, and I'll just have my little check boxes for today, tomorrow, this week, this month. That tends to work really well for me. And then I also am too ADHD to remember everything. And so I'll use my reminders, and literally any meeting, anything, like I'll have a reminder in there to alert me X amount of time before. And I just make sure that I've always got everything. I'd rather be overwhelmed with reminders than forget one thing. And it works. It really does work for me, because then I like checking things off. I like crossing or pushing a button to make it disappear, and so that I can see. And sometimes, I think it's important to obviously you can break down any task to like the craziest detail, but sometimes I'll make myself feel better when it's this big daunting project, if even if I've done something already, but it's part of my day's task list and I've finished it. Well, I'll put it on there and check it off right away, just so that I can see what I've done so far, and it doesn't feel like, it's easy to feel like you're not getting anywhere with something. And I make sure when I'm really organized that every single day I've got a certain amount of work done. I have to get certain amount of tasks done. Sometimes you can flip them around if something may be too big, or let's say it's something you got to do outside and it's raining. One of the like 6 days it rains in Los Angeles. You can having that looseness and the ability to make those shifts is important. So you're not too one track minded, but I'm pretty rudimentary when it comes to my organization style.
I love that. It's you're touching on a few things that I think is gonna resonate with people. One, neurodivergent ADHD. So many people, especially in the creative fields, that are, uh, yeah, working like with that, around that, and trying to figure out how to manage it in a way that fits into the world, right? Like, so many things wrong with the way that society is structured and built, and it's typically working against people with neurodivergent, minds and what's going on there. So it's really interesting to hear you, bring that up and your system for managing this. But something that is really important that I think would benefit everyone is how you make a point, even if you've already done it, to add it to the list so you can then check it off, right? You don't need to do that. But it's so important to do that because it brings that sense of accomplishment. It gives you something to celebrate. And it allows you to, as you said, recognize that, yeah, again, you've got an endless list of tasks and work that you're aware of. And in the moment, it can be very hard to feel like you're making progress, but you are. And doing that allows you to visually, tangibly see that progress, right? So I think, everyone listening, if especially, if you're a founder, if you're struggling to feel like you're making any progress, you feel like you're, not doing enough, reframe things like Charlie's been saying and like demonstrating. Focus on the good, focus on what you have been doing, and try to learn how to manage your expectations and feel okay with, accept that this is what my, max output is in this situation at this time in my life. That's what I'm doing. I'm doing my best, and feel good about that and celebrate that. So I love that you brought that up.
Well,
Uh,
and just to add to that, just in the general mindset. So I went to school for product design, and I remember one of the first things a teacher said to me that I've always remembered was, we're going to build a toaster. It's like, I know you've never built a toaster, probably. I know that there's a lot to it. You got to sketch it. You've got to do more refined drawings. You then are going to have to 3D model this thing. You're going to have to build the model. You're going to have to break down the structure and show me like the full scope, right? Anything you're doing that's big enough that you can't do all in one shot, you just have to separate it into parts and then work backwards, right? Oh, well, this is your end date. And I've always worked this way since, is start with the end date. Okay, well then if I break it down into some big milestones, I have to make sure that my sketches are done here. I'm gonna have to get my finished drawings, then my 3D renderings, and then start to make the model, and then we'll do the breakdown. Well, if I break that down, now I have, okay, well then if I give myself a week for each and it's due in 5 weeks and there's 5 parts, well then what does each week look like? Well, pretty quickly when you do that, you suddenly get really stressed when you go, oh my God, that means I have to start right now and I'm not going to go to sleep tonight. So figuring out how to subdivide all of those in that way, that process seems to help a lot more, because it you think you have more time than you do pretty much all the time. And on the other side of that same spectrum, if you do have time and you're starting a new task, and because my girlfriend was in that, where she was trying to figure out she wanted to build a brand, and she was making these plushies, and she's like, well, oh my God, that sounds insanely impossible, but there's no deadline for her. So I got her on the task of, instead of being overwhelmed and shutting down and feeling anxious every single day and not doing anything, and then stressing on the fifth day that you haven't done anything for 5 days, give yourself 1 hour a day, right? Well, in 5 days, you've done 5 hours. You can always do more or less, but at least you've done 5 hours, because sometimes you're spinning your wheels. Sometimes you have no idea what to even do and you just got to explore. But if you only have to suffer for 1 hour in the day, it's not that big of a deal. And at least you've got a mini ending to the task, and then you can relax again. And I don't have to think about this until tomorrow for my next hour. I don't know what I'm going to do. It might suck, but tomorrow's task. And then eventually that it gives you a new approach. It kind of creates, and it's like the system designs itself in that way, because eventually you get to the point where you go, oh, I see. Oh, I need to get this thing done. Oh, well, okay, I need to get that done, and then I can get this part done. Oh, and then maybe you jump ahead and you think you're going to do the website, and then you start, and then you go, shoot, but I don't have any photos, or I have to edit the photos and scale them down to be the right sizes. And so then you backtrack a bit. So when you're starting a new process that you've never done, sometimes you end up like, there's always this breath, right? There's always this push and pull, and sometimes you have to, 2 step back, 1 step forward kind of a deal, but you'll get there. Sometimes it's 1 step back, 2 forward. And keeping consistent is, I think, the key with anything. And so whichever way you get lost, there's always a way out.
This is true. And yeah, again, appreciate your anecdotes and examples for sure. I just posted in chat. A lot of this too is project management, and it's important for everyone, much like other like mental health practices, to experiment, try things out, and see what works best for you. Right? All these different systems are simply a matter of setting and managing expectations, understanding what the goal is, and yeah, reverse engineering what steps you need to take in order to reach that, and then managing it all, right? And
Yep.
the different systems, they are structured different ways. One of my favorites is a new one that another mentor, Mike Williams, has developed. It's very much agile scrum based, but it's super simplified, and it's mixing some best practices for mental wellness into it, where it's all about those celebrations and taking those moments to practice mindfulness. So yeah, I posted a link in the chat for that if people are interested. You don't need to buy anything. You can just uh, did my internet go out? Can you hear me, Charlie? Am I here?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, I just got a weird error. All right, thank you, people, for letting me know. But yeah, anyhow, you can just print them out or copy it. It's very helpful. But yeah, great other thing to look into for everyone. We're looking at other chats. People are joining. I see new people on Twitch. Welcome. If you have questions for Charlie, or if you want to share what you're working on to get advice, feedback, insight from Charlie, use the text chat. I will relay, and then we'll hear what Charlie has to say to you. So don't be shy. That's why we're here. So please use the text chat and let us know what you got going on or what you need help with. And Jose added some extra. He's got a question. When pitching to investors, how can we balance financial returns with lifestyle appeal without sounding fluffy? So again, when you're telling that story, do you have any advice or insight on that, Charlie?
I mean, to be honest, that's usually where I'll send it over to the business partner to handle. But I mean, I guess it comes down to it's somewhat similar with it's kind of like the back end of storytelling. You obviously need to make sure that your investors understand what the return is going to be, what your projections are, which still comes to the audience. Like when we were doing art prints for TJ Maxx and we were talking to investors to build that, it's like, well, I mean, obviously here's the market cap, here's how it's progressed over the years and how we can see it and that we can move into European markets and so on and so on, and how we can cut down costs. But showing, because even that is, even the art prints we were doing kind of the more fun, playful, we were doing the, what did they call them? They were like the fringe. We didn't do so much abstract because that's not really my style. It was more like character or cityscapes, or we were good at filling in gaps that they had. And so they called it fringe, but there was still a lot of money to be made just in fringe, and they would ask us to do more. So we knew specifically what our market was and who we were selling to. And of course, TJ Maxx tells you like, oh, well, the demo is going to be like a white woman in her 30s to 40s in the Midwest. And that's generally who it is. And then that's general for TJ Maxx. But then for the art print market was women that are going into college and they're going to be filling up their dorms with cool stuff. So it was like these two sides, and we had to focus on both of those. But the fringe tended to go more towards the 18-year-old that was going into college. And so we found that, well, here's the general market cap, but then also going down to those different lifestyles and then pitching based on what that customer wanted was really important. And that got us a lot more interest from different companies and from different investors, which helped us out in the long run because we were able to kind of upsell, saying like, well, we know these things works. These are our best sellers. But we also know that the 18-year-old, if they're doing their dorm, well, then they want things that are simple, easy to match. So then we started making matching like packages of products, and we're getting more development because of it. And so it's kind of like the macro micro kind of a deal. And I don't know if that helps, but that was the way it made it easier for people to want to invest, because they could see the vision that way. Because again, where it's all about pitching the lifestyle and branding of TJ Maxx as a whole, and then the fringe version for our specific best selling customer, right?
Yeah, no, I think it's helpful. Jose, you can add in more on that. But I will add, in terms of like fluffy, the things that stand out the most to investors as being fluffy is showing the projections. And the projections go like this, and then the hockey stick curve suddenly. And it's just a unrealistic jump. Because typically in most businesses, the curve goes like this and then slowly, 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 and then it jumps, right? So if you're going to be showing a 3 year projection, especially if you don't have existing revenue already, be very conservative in terms of what that growth looks like and back it up with actual methodology and plans and strategies. And that's kind of what, Charlie, what you're touching on is showing from a ground level where you're focused on first and how that's going to help you grow by being very specifically focused on these types of people, this specific little niche in the market, and then how that's going to bring in revenue, allow you to grow, achieve product market fit in that area, and then turn on the scalability machine because you understand your systems, you understand your methodologies, you've proven these things. They're not assumptions any longer. And now you can start to dial in the efficiencies of those systems and automate those systems through technology and allow you to scale. And scaling at that stage is going to be about hiring enough labor to do what needs to be done, but also putting enough capital into the marketing and sales, divisions of your company to funnel all of those people to your product, to your service, right, at a massive scale. So keep those things in mind in addition to what Charlie said. As far as like the lifestyle side of things too, that's part of the overarching story, especially if you're putting a pitch together that's demonstrating the actual day in the life of your intended customers or your existing customers, right? Where here's what people are experiencing currently, which is frustrating or bad in some way. Here's the experience that they're having with our product, our service, which is the alternative to what they're already doing, and how that's going to be more enjoyable and more beneficial and thus more valuable to these specific people. That's all wrapped together as part of like the story within the larger story of your pitch, right? Highlighting how these things work and why it's again enjoyable, beneficial, and valuable to them. Jose had a follow-up question. What design elements have you seen work best to make complex models simple and exciting for non-technical audience?
Well, okay, just to back up for a second, because I don't know enough about the controlled environment agriculture. It sounds like a pretty large scale operation, but to give you some context into the fluff versus no fluff with projections and talking to investors, same with branding and lifestyle, all kind of similar. Let's say this was it was farming that could be in a smaller scale for, let's say, a home or something, versus if it's for a business or for, let's even like underground bunker or something, right? There, it might work in all of those if you know that specifically, like let's say it's like, oh, this is like controlled farming environment that's perfect for underground bunkers. It's so specific. But if there was a market for that and people were interested in it, well, maybe you have something that's similar that exists out there, but yours is tweaked just enough to where it hits so hard and it's so perfect for someone that's got like the underground bunker. Well, maybe that's your main focus and that's the angle that you're taking on. But of course, you can spread it out and you can market it to more people. But then if that's the idea, well, then I want to make sure that my logo works for that. And it's not going to be, maybe it's a bit more technical than like this fluffy thing that's meant for like schools for kids or something like that, right? Like those would be two totally different branding styles, and I'd be pitching that to investors in completely different ways. My pitch deck would look totally different, so on, so on. It's important to have that focus, to know what your audience is, to know how you want to pitch it, because you can always spread it. Like BMW's logo is the propeller spinning, and they're not making airplane motors, they're doing cars, but it's that was their focus that got them in, and then it can spread from there, right? And a lot of companies have similar backgrounds and histories to it. So to your question, what makes complex models simple and exciting? I mean, it's a bit too complex probably to explain in on like a kind of seminary talk type deal, but I'd say that's where you have designers. I guess that's the value of the designer. You might be able to make something that works technically, but maybe it's too complicated because your background isn't in design, and you want the designer to take the complex process and turn it into a very simplified step, right? That tends to be it. Like you'll watch something on how it works, and you're not seeing these like specific details. Maybe you're getting snippets of how something works in real life and what the process is. But usually you'll get these infographics, and they'll show it in this really basic form, because you can always start basic, and it kind of works in any sort of language. You start simple, and then you get a bit more complex and you layer it on. You don't start with you're not going to calculus, right? You're doing addition and subtraction, and you're building up from there. And so it's a similar kind of approach, I think.
I love that. And yeah, again, another recurring theme, as with most of these office hours, is the importance of context, establishing the correct context, working within that context. And a lot of that is research, doing the research first, and making sure that you understand your goals, the intention behind what you're doing. And a pitch deck, like you just explained, it's going to depend on the audience and who those investors are. And there's going to be very specific things that are recurring highlights that every investor is typically looking for, but the little nuances that really, again, resonates the most with an individual investor or a group of investors is going to depend on who they are, what their interests are, what their investment thesis is. If you're unaware of an investment thesis, look that up. If it's a VC, most VCs have investment theses that are well documented because they're using that as a marketing tool to the investors that they're bringing in to fund their fund, right? Angel investors, sometimes they have that. It's more like it's on the whim, but if you talk to them and have conversations with them, they'll explain it. They'll share, the type of companies they're looking for, what stage, what industry at market, why they look for these things, what their beliefs are in funding a specific company for their portfolio, and how they believe that they're going to be able to bring something to the table that's going to help them be successful, right? So don't be shy about having conversations, especially if you're fundraising. One of the things that we say all the time is don't rush the pitch. Seek those investors out first as mentors without asking them to be mentors. Ask them for feedback, advice, insights that's very relevant to who they are and what you're working on. And do that in a way that is easy for them to follow up with, like 10-minute call, buy them coffee, and then you're out after 20 minutes, right? Small little ask. And you use that not only as a way to learn about what their focuses are so you can craft the most effective pitch for them, but it also helps you vet them as investors, see if you work well together, how they behave with you, if there's someone that you want to go into business with, right? Don't be afraid of that. And building that relationship in an authentic way with them is going to hopefully endear you to them and make it more likely for them to want to support you, either by investing in you or being like, hey, you know what, this isn't the best deal for me, but I know these other investors. you should talk to them, or let me introduce you, right? So always be aware of the importance of building authentic relationships. And this goes back to, again, something that Charlie was explaining initially with getting started with his career in business. um, Rahul just shared that they're building SemLX to streamline semiconductor supply chain and mitigate risk. Rahul, as I said in LinkedIn, feel free to follow up if you want to share. If you're, facing any challenges, branding, design, experience, anything related to, Charlie's expertise, so we can dig a little bit deeper into that. Um, yeah, especially sharing what you mean by streamline, because when we're thinking about that first impression on people, it's not the worst, like little introduction to what you're doing, but streamline can mean anything, right? And mitigating tasks or risks and working with these different elements of what you said, yeah, it can mean anything. So it'd be helpful to get a little more context to help. We've got a couple minutes left. I just noticed the time. So last call for questions and sharing. And yeah, I'm so happy that, Charlie, you've been a wonderful mentor and sharing so much great insights with everyone. And thank you, Jose and Dr. Paxmore, and yeah, others for tuning in and being a part of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, uh, I am juggling so many chats right now. But yeah,
Yeah.
Charlie, give me actually, here's a real quick thing. Touching on what you're just saying in regards to working with a designer, when you recognize that, bringing in help is going to be important. Having been the designer working with clients, what do you recommend as the best way to work with a designer so they can hit the ground running and they're not just like, I don't know what the hell you're trying to get me to do or why? So how would you recommend putting together some documentation or, support assets to help the designer understand how to make the goal achievable with the design element or design work?
Yeah. So pretty much every time you work with a designer, they probably don't know, almost could guarantee they're not going to know as much as you do about whatever product business you're trying to push, right? So the more insight you can give, you need to help start the storytelling. There's I've always what I always ask clients is to give me as much inspo as they can for, if I'm doing some design work for a lawyer right now, actually. And it's like, well, I need to know what kind of law you do. I want to know what inspires you, what websites you like, what logos you like. Give me an idea of what your world is and the world you want to fit in. Because again, it's a lifestyle, right? I saw a cool business card like a week ago or so where it was a divorce attorney, and so they made a business card that had his name on it, and then it had his telephone and his email and website on both sides, and it had a perforation in the center, and so it splits in half representing the divorce lawyer, right? So it's like, oh, it's really clever. Well, if that's what you want to be doing versus if you want to have this business card that has like gold foil on it and it looks really expensive because you're in Beverly Hills, let's say, and you're trying to hit these multimillionaire clients and you're trying to do I don't know, they're different worlds even though they're both lawyers, right? If I know that you want your website to look like this and it's got all these flashy parts to it versus if you want something that's very rudimentary, or maybe you have a budget that because you're just starting off and you're a new lawyer and you want it to look as close to this as you can, but you can only really afford maybe this, but that's the designer to kind of guide you on. But at least they'll have an understanding of where you fit into this mold. And so it will get you closer to what you might not even know than you think. And to be open minded to it is also going to be the most beneficial to you, because otherwise you might end up spending more money, more time, because you think you know, but you really don't understand, and you don't understand the details of, like, when we went going back to like the favicon up to the billboard, right? You want to make sure that that Sweet James logo is going to work really tiny and really big and on any asset they might need, right? And if it doesn't, it might cause you some problems. So let's do that now. in a nutshell.
Yeah, no, again, like every time, brilliant, love it. It's super helpful. I know a lot of this stuff from experience, but you forget a lot too, especially like, like you got life going on. So it's always wonderful to be reminded of things that you already know or learn new things as you're hopefully doing for people that are tuning in. The other thing too that I think is important when you're working with others, especially experts, specialists, trust them, right? And like you said, you may find yourself feeling like you know better, or you believe something's possible. But if this person, the specialist, this expert saying, look, within the parameters that you have, these restrictions with resources, time, and all this other stuff, here's the best that we can do that's going to achieve something that is exciting and high quality, right? If we try to push this, then something's going to get lost. It's not going to be, good. That applies to any role, whether you're bringing in a designer or an engineer or a marketer, whatever it is, right? Like if you've gone so far as to hire them and bring them on, trust them, right? Like default to their expertise. Remember that.
Well,
There's yeah, yeah.
well, and also you might have a designer that's half the price, and it doesn't mean that you're going to get double the output. A lot of times it's funny. I'd have clients say like, yo, you're too expensive. I'm going to find somebody that's cheaper and better. And I'd be like, go ahead. I don't want to deal with this. This is too much. This is too much noise. Like the whole point is, trust me. I know what I'm doing. I will get it to you better than anybody else. The amount of times I've had a client come back and say like, oh, I tried it with this other person. They were half the price, but we had all these problems. They did this print job and it didn't come out right. And it was pixelated. It was the wrong size, or we spent double the time. And that's usually what will happen. It's like the more, it's not necessarily true, but a lot of times you might have a designer that's double as much and gets it done in half the time, but they know more and they're faster, they're more efficient. That's what you want. You want the person that is the pro and understands. If you've got the time, it's like the good, fast, cheap. You can pick two, right? And so you might get the designer that's cheap and maybe good, but it's going to be a back and forth. There's going to be a lot more work on your side to make sure that things are done right. And you're going to kind of be guiding that designer, which no designer wants and you don't want, because the whole point is you need to be doing what you're best at. And you need to hire people that are best at doing what they do always.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that you kind of touch on, which again goes back to other conversation earlier, is again the context. And when you're hiring someone for any role, you want to contextualize their methodology as it relates to your brand, as it relates to your company and your goals, right? Because a lot of times too, when someone is going to hire the cheapest available person, it may not be a good fit like with the brand and aesthetic and what their style is capable of in terms of what you're trying to achieve. And that could happen too if you're hiring a really expensive designer or engineer or something like that too. If they don't have the methodology that aligns with your brand, your mission, your culture, your goals and all that stuff too, it's just a mismatch, right? And there's a certain amount of trust that you should have, but it's important to vet each other first and make sure that you're again a good match in alignment with everything. And then if you got to that point and now you're hiring them, yes, give them the trust, but just be careful, going into something that you know it may seem like a good idea to just bring this person on, but yeah, I love what you've done to demonstrate your methodology, the importance of how you establish context with a potential client or, for your own projects before moving forward. So, yeah, all of this I hope is helpful to people. Charlie, we're coming up on time. We're over time. So, I'm going to say this has been a wonderful time with you. I loved it. Hopefully, other people, again, learned and had a good time as well. Charlie, do you have any final thoughts? Are you working on anything you want to share with the community?
I mean, I'm always working on something. I don't know what I can really share. I've shared a good amount. I mean, I'm always excited on whatever project I got coming up next. So I'm in the midst of a few things, and I've got a few things in the works, and I have a few more meetings today. So if we were to talk later on this evening, I might have even more. But it's exciting stuff. It's funny how I've I've just over my career, I've been developing related but separate skills and kind of foundations for understandings and getting new clients in for different things. And it's interesting how I've just my own journey, I've seen certain clients will get they will have more going on and need more from me, and they will trust me. And the trust is such a big thing with any partners, with any business. When you don't trust each other, it never works out very well. It's not fluid and it's tricky. But when you do trust each other, you end up just helping each other out in as many ways as you can, because if you've got a good team, if you've got a good crew, everybody wants to see each other succeed. And it feels good. It feels on the right path. And you got to be grateful for those wins. And so I'm grateful for them. I'm grateful for you, Gary. This has been fun. And thanks, everybody.
Yeah, you're one of my favorite people. And Dr. Paxmore on Twitch asked, "Do you have any personal projects?" And I'm gonna definitely highlight one of yours, Screaming Kettles. You got Screaming Kettles,
Wow.
man.
Oh, that's totally left field vibes. I mean, yeah, that was a fun project. I mean, give you some insight on that. My family's English. My brother is a music engineer. He runs the craziest music studio in one of the best in the country, but no one knows about it. It's owned by a billionaire, run by a millionaire. My brother's the sole uh, engineer for the whole place. And I got hired a couple years ago to design the whole thing, and so I did all of the finished carpentry, woodwork, in the whole place. And because it was this beautiful music studio and they have the EMI soundboard and they have $1 million guitars just sitting around, I was like, yo, Will, wouldn't it be really funny? Will's my brother. It'd be really funny if the two of us just like on our lunch breaks made an album that was like 70s kind of punk with English accents. And he's like, oh, we're totally doing that. So Screaming Kettles is our band, and it's all food related songs because we did it on our lunchtime. The album's called Lunchtime. So random, has nothing to do with anything else we've talked about today, but very fun. Uh, but the fun side project that I've been building is now called Babes and Waves, and we do a lot of custom stuff for brands, and which we're doing for this one of Tony Hawk's his new helmet company called Yepa. So we're doing some hats for them, but I'll just hand embroider hats live for people at events, and not so much to make money, but more for the exposure and for fun. And it's pretty cool when you'll do these corporate events. Like we did a corporate event for an insurance, like an insurance seminar, and it was hilarious how their minds were blown, because it's like there's 100 booths and they're all plain white with a table, and someone's giving away popcorn and the other one's got information on insurance related things, and it's like boring, 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 not even close to my world. Even the people that work it are so bored. And then there was us, and we made everything out of cardboard, and it's all neon green with a neon green rug and a neon green table, and it is just like, what is this in this sea of white and plain? And then there was us, and I'm just sitting there with my generator, and we've got the sewing machine, and I have like 200 threads and boxes of random hats that I've spray painted and airbrushed, and they're all custom. And it's like, choose any hat, choose any thread color and any word or phrase you want, and I will stitch it on for you right now. And people were just like losing their minds. And then by day 2 of this event, it was hilarious, because then you see all these kind of like dorky tech insurance people with their crazy hats on, and like one dude wanted to zoom out, and then he's like, you just walk past him, he's like, yeah, so zoom out is because, and he's like going into all these technical details, and it just like makes you laugh how even the people that seem the most conservative have this fun and bright side to them, and just giving them this ounce of possibility to express themselves and making it okay by having it in this event space. It just lit up the whole spot, and everybody was just laughing, and people kept coming back for a second, and a third hat wanted one for like their families and stuff. And I don't know, aside from business, like life, that's one of like the joys in life of just having those experiences and getting to express yourself and help people express themselves. And it's just pure joy. So, so there you
Uh,
go.
no, I appreciate that. I love that. I think that's a wonderful story to end on. So thank you so much, Charlie. You're one of my favorite people. You have been for a very long time. You're family, man. Thank you for doing this. I would love to have you come back because there's so many different things to get into with you that'd be really helpful for the community. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, we're down.
Um, yeah, awesome. All right, everyone, thank you for tuning in and being part of this. Tell your friends, and we'll catch you next time. All right,
Yeah,
have a good one, Charlie.
later.
See ya.